Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I hope you guys can hear me. Dr. Zara, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
MashaAllah.
I can hear
Okay, let's start. I'm gonna make it a short one today, inshallah, because it might be late in some parts of the world. So, just a quick introduction. What are fears? What are fears? Can anybody tell me? What do you think? What are fears?
Fears are something that threaten our sense of security or comfort.
Yes. So is it something tangible, or is it just something that is invisible, and does it have a shape or form, or is it like something we can touch, or is it just an emotion?
It's an emotion.
It's an emotion.
It can be in shape or form also.
Give an example.
Like we fear some animals, we fear reptiles.
Yes, but those are objects
In the
of,
form,
yes, those are objects
we
and things that we fear.
we
But
fear
yes,
some human beings also.
yes, it happens. Yes, but basically, sometimes you're not in the presence of those things and you're imagining them, right? So at
Right.
that time, those fears are just emotions and feelings.
Right.
So you're sitting and thinking, oh, if I go outside and I go for a walk, and last week there was a neighbor with a big dog. So what if I go outside today as well and there will be a big dog and blah, blah, blah. So you picture a scenario in your own head of the object that you fear, but it is not there. But still you fear, and you still experience the same discomfort that you had the last time with that object, right? So this is an emotion that can be relived and relived and relived and relived as many times as we want. And the remote control is in our hands. So I found this very interesting that, the word fears and peers, it rhymes. It's so interesting. Have you ever thought about it? Fears and peers? Because one of the most critical fear that we have in our lives is peers, the fear of peers. What will the peers think? What will the peers say? What will, So we have this fear of failure or fear of embarrassment in front of the peers that is a very big fear that affects almost every one of us, right? We are afraid of the consequences. Yes?
What are you referring to in peers? What exactly are the peers?
Peers can be anyone. Peers could be in family, peers could be friends, peers could be strangers as well. Most of the times you're just afraid of strangers. Like there's a term called they, and nobody knows who they are. They are the biggest, like they is the biggest ghost, invisible, like no one's ever seen them, no one's ever met them, but they are everywhere, right? So it's the they that we are always afraid of. What will they say? What will they think of us? So there's this very big them. That's a very big pronoun. Like I thought Pakistan and India, we don't have a pronoun problem, but we do. We do. We have a very big pronoun problem. So why isn't a child afraid? What is the difference between the fear of a child and the fear of an adult? Any clues?
Well, an adult in his entire lifetime, it's a matter of his experiences, and it's a matter of things he's encountered that have impacted his mind with
You mean trial and
with,
error experience?
different things which have threatened his sense of security or comfort. So a child by nature, there is a lack of the experience and those encounters. I think they don't even perceive the things the way adults start to perceive situations.
Hmm.
And
Learn from-
obviously,
We learn from experience.
it is a matter of what they've experienced in their life, which is not much considering their age.
Right. So most of
If
the
they're
time,
in a
One of-
safe and comfortable environment.
but there are many things that we can learn as well from a child. That is, children are not afraid of taking an initiative. And that initiative is because children, if you notice, think about it from now on. If you haven't paid attention before, think about it from now on that a child is not afraid of peer pressure. A child doesn't even have any peer pressure. They just go and, like I remember, children are known to be like, oh, Ami is saying she's not at home, or my dad's saying he's not at home. They just talk. They're just frank and open. So they don't have that lack of taking the initiative for something new, mostly because they're not afraid of what other people would think about them. And there are other things that are also praised. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he praised a few qualities of a child and the persistence a child has towards whatever he wants, and to easily forget. He just has a fight with a friend and then next day they're the same again. So there's so many things, and he wants something, he's so persistent, he cries and cries, and then the mother has to give him something. So there are a few qualities, so we need to learn also from a child, because Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has specifically praised the habit of a child, or the psychology of a child, you could say. So the child isn't always afraid. He's afraid, but like even a baby is afraid for that sense. Sometimes we notice the baby is sleeping and jerks all of a sudden during sleep. That means the baby has this tendency of being afraid. He has the reflex of being afraid because the baby is lying down on bed and slight noise or something, or even nothing. Like sometimes we assume, oh, maybe he got afraid in a dream. So even the baby gets a jerk and we, oh, baby got afraid, right? So that means the baby also has this tendency of being afraid. But generally speaking, we don't see a child have this lack of initiative. But as we grow older, the lack of initiative becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and paralyzing. So this lack of initiative is so paralyzing that this stops people from reaching their maximum potential and doing many good things, many good things. This is why we are talking about fears today. Kids are hardly ever afraid. They probably don't even think about their consequences, and they don't worry about what people would think about them. I mean, there are children, yes, there are children who have their very strong likes and dislikes. Even at the age of 3 or 4, they might add, this is my favorite shirt, I'm not going to wear the other shirt. But they're not, I've seen children who are very headstrong, and I'm going to wear only that red shirt, or I'm going to have that blanket. But that's not because they're afraid of what other people would think about them. That's only because of their likes and dislikes, their own choices. They're not worried about what the other person is thinking, because they can lie down in the middle of a grocery store and they can throw a tantrum. They're not even thinking what other people are thinking about them. While they're embarrassing you for life, they're not afraid of what others will think about them, right? And come to think of it, like I went to England with my son. I think he was 4 years old, and we went to this very big store. Probably I was covering the mic. Okay. So My son was probably 4 at that time, and he started throwing a tantrum in the middle of the shop at the counter when I was about to make the payment, and there was a huge line behind me, and I still remember how embarrassed I got, and he has totally forgotten about it. And that day I really felt embarrassed for a while, but now that I think about it, I mean, who were those people? I never came across them again. It's been a good 10 years. Why would I feel so embarrassed of a bunch of strangers and look with a cross expression on my face towards my child? Why shouldn't I rather address the need of my child, hug him, and address to his mental state, whatever that is at that time? Why should I worry about what those strangers from all over the world or wherever they had come from? There were many tourists. Why should I bother what they are thinking? So, what is it that conditions us? And we start thinking about, oh, what is that person thinking of me, and what is that person thinking? I should only worry about my relationship with my child. I shouldn't worry so much about the way my child, he doesn't even remember. He doesn't even care. He didn't care at that time, and he doesn't care now. But we often laugh, and I still remember the incident. So, what is this difference between a child's mind and my mind? So, we have to really think about it. That why do we feel so strongly about certain things? And why do children just go for whatever they feel like doing? They just go for it. They want something, they just go for it. And they're so persistent. And they keep doing it repeatedly without thinking about the consequences. And instead, we are the ones who are forcing the consequences down their throats, so to speak, just like we are pushing food down their throats. We are pushing the consequences down their throats all the time. So we have to stop and think about it. Why is it that we are not as quick in taking initiatives while the kids are? And they easily take an initiative, they easily do what they feel like doing. They're not afraid of speaking to strangers. And like we maybe come across one incident and we become so skeptic. So, what's holding you back? Is there anything that you wanted to do for the past 10 years and you've always felt that something is holding you back? Is there anything that you can think of? Could be in a relationship, could be in workplace, could be in some studies. Anything that you guys can think of that
People's opinion, fear of people's opinion.
it's holding you back? You feel the pressure for the past 10 years?
Yeah.
Oh my God, see?
Yes,
But is it,
mostly.
and is it tangible? Is it something like you can touch or feel, or is it just in the head? It's a feeling.
Feeling.
It's a feeling, right? Hmm. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
What will others think?
there's
Hmm.
a thing about recontinuing my profession or studies. Obviously, things holding back. There's so many things which just
So
which you feel are
this
bigger
thing happened with
hurdles.
me 4 or 5 years back. I was really afraid of my brother was he's a mashallah, he's very outgoing, and he's my opposite. Like, I'm a very hardcore introvert, he's a very hardcore extrovert. So he was always telling me, why don't you do this, and why don't you do that, and why don't you come on TikTok, and why don't you do things? I'm like a very, keeping to myself kind of a person. And he was just constantly telling me, you have knowledge, why don't you make this? If you know something, why don't you make this video? Yeah, you just told me this thing, why don't you make a video on this thing, this topic and that topic? And he was like encouraging me and pushing me and poking me constantly. And I'm telling myself, no, no, this is not me. I'm a very calm, like, I'm an introvert. I had given myself this label in my head that I'm an introvert, and I had also given myself a label in my head that I'm a very shy person and I'm a very humble person. I used to give myself these false labels, you know. But seemingly, apparently, these labels are very innocent and very, very Islamic and very, very comforting and क्या कहेंगे नेक बीबी नेक परवीन, right? They're like very अच्छे अच्छे labels. But then one day I went to the mall with my sister-in-law, and we spent from like 10 in the morning till 6 p.m. We were in the mall. We went to every shop, right? We tested like all the liners, all the mascaras and lipsticks and new collections. And like for one little thing that we wanted to buy, we would go around and check and, you know, and when I came back and I was like, okay, so there is this conflict of belief here, of my opinion of myself and what I actually do and what I believe I do, right? I am, although I feel that I'm invisible, even while going around the mall in every shop, like Macy's or JCPenney or any, I'm just going around, and we went to a restaurant, ate, and came back. But at that moment, I'm just totally not thinking about whoever else is around. They're also there doing their business. I'm there doing my business. I'm doing my shopping. Then why is it that all of a sudden, when I have to do some Islamic work or educational work or make a video and speak there and present my point, why do I all of a sudden start getting this, you know, hesitation and resistance inside me, tug of war, sort of, that no, I can't do it. I'm an introvert. I'm a shy person. But where was my shyness when I spent the whole day in the mall, in the shopping mall? Where does the shyness go? So when we analyze, we start analyzing and hold ourselves accountable for certain things. Then you realize that no, actually, when I go grocery shopping, I speak with the, if I have to speak with the manager, return something, I'm very bored at that point. And I'm not a very shy person over there. I present my point, I return my thing, I get my money back, I do these things. But only when it comes to doing something beneficial, making a beneficial video, spreading a hadith, or you know, making some educational talk or podcast. Why is it that only then I'm feeling that I'm an introvert? No, 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 I'm an introvert, I'm a shy person, I'm a very humble person, I don't want to be known. So then I started realizing that it is probably that the labels I have set upon myself are limiting me, and they are not actually true labels. Those are actually labels that Shaitan has probably made me become satisfied with. Oh, you're just like this. Sit back. You don't have to do anything. So we have to filter ourselves. We have to filter, become accountable, and filter inside us. I know sometimes it can get very difficult, but then there's a, you know, ayah in the Quran that with difficulty comes ease. With every difficulty comes ease. So every difficult thing that we feel are difficult, there's a lot of satisfaction after that. When we deep clean the house, like when we sometimes we superficially clean the house, but when we deep clean the house, that means sukoon for at least 30-40 days. When we only superficially clean the house, we have to do it every day. But when we deep clean the house, that's like a month, 2 months, alhamdulillah. Then only have to do little bit here, little bit there, and it's still shining. So we have to deep clean ourselves at least once a month. At least we should deep clean our inner selves and see, have I given myself limiting beliefs? Have I given myself limiting fear? My dear, is one of the fear, my dear, in fact, is the number one limiting belief. Number one limiting belief that we have, and that is holding us back. And it is not at all something real. Think about it. It's just a waswasa It's just a waswasa, and we don't even know and we don't even handle it. So there's a very famous saying that a coward dies 1,000 deaths, right? Like, you're afraid, you won't even go outside for a walk. I haven't, like, I do that at times. I fear, oh, the neighbor might be out with the dog. I don't go out for a walk. But then again, if I have to go do shopping with somebody, I'd spend the whole day in the mall, but I wouldn't go out for a walk. So there is a contrast in your own behaviors. You come across a behavior in your own selves that you're acting differently in one place and you're acting differently in another place. So a coward dies 1,000 deaths. This is something to be um, this is something you should find detested. Like, this is something disgusting. You should develop a certain amount of dislike and disgust for a certain behavior that helps get rid of that behavior. If you have a bad habit, if you're habitually telling yourself or allowing yourself to be afraid and stay in the comfort zone, then this is something that you have to feel certain slight disgust, not too much, slight disgust, just the way we feel a slight disgust from dogs coming near us, that they will mess up our clothes. Otherwise, we find them cute, but we have a slight disgust, yeah? So they don't come and touch our clothes, so we can perform salah, so we don't let them come near us. So we should be afraid of fear rather than the other way around. Like, we should be afraid of fear. So, and when we become Muslims, this is what we have to realize, that we don't have to fear anybody but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't have to fear anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is very important, that we are mindful and conscious that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the owner, He's the king, He's the controller of all affairs, then we don't have to be afraid of anybody else. Because everybody else is also in the examination hall being tested. If they're wasting their time looking at you and they're failing in their exam, anybody who's given any exams knows this, that if you're sitting in the examination hall as a student, if the other student is stupid enough to look at you, they're failing their exam. So that's their choice. But if you're afraid of they're looking at you and you're not filling your exam paper, then you're also stupid. Because I mean, I would never do that. When I took any exam, I took my FSC exam, or I took my O levels or medicine exams, any exam I take, I wouldn't stop because the timer is running. I have a limited amount of time. If I stop or pause to look at what the other person is writing or whether the other people are staring at me or not, so I should start my paper. If I think like that, I would never finish my exam. I wouldn't even start it. And that's what I do in real life. Although real life is just like an exam. So have we established that Allah is sovereign? Have we established that Allah is the authority? Have we established that Allah is the king? Have we established that Allah is the one everybody should be afraid of or conscious of? Those people who I am afraid of, do they have any authority from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep a check on me? If they're keeping a check on me, if they're being my police, if they're policing me in any way of my actions, my lifestyle, or my projects, if anybody is keeping a check on me, did Allah Ta'ala appoint them police on me? Because last time I heard, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had angels writing down my deeds, not humans. So we should be very, very careful. Have we really, really absorbed the meaning of Islam? Have we really absorbed what it means to be an abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So a Muslim does not fear anyone but the displeasure of Allah. We do not fear anyone but the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we serve others, even then the first intention should be we're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not doing it for people. We're not people pleasers. We're only here to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we please people also, that is only because we are trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh. So what is tawakkul? Sorry about the slide. I can't fix it right now. What is tawakkul? Anybody?
Complete reliance on Allah, and now only after your lecture, now only worrying about Allah's opinion.
Yes, inshallah. So tawakkul, I mean, I would think tawakkul means, like, imagine when we focus on something on screen and then everything else on the sides is blurred out. You focus on this word, tawakkul, and everything else will become blurred out. You don't know anything else. You're just looking at this word. So that is how much you focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that everything else blurs out, even your own effort, and you're having complete focus that Allah has your back. So just for the basics, this is the root word. It is translated to mean to give oneself over to Allah Ta'ala. You know, Allah ke hawale kar dena khud ko completely. Totally rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By the way, do we have confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I did an experiment with my sons, my children. I told my husband to stand behind them, and I told my sons to have a free fall backwards freely, like, and the father would catch them. And then I asked them, and I asked my husband, I asked myself, do you have even this much faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do we have even this much faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is tawakkul. And we have been conditioned. It's not our fault, but inshallah, from now on, if we work on it, inshallah, this can be fixed. Do we have faith, even this much faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have like, I'll fall back and my husband or my friend or my best friend, they'll catch me. Baba will catch me, Mummy will catch me. But do we have even this much tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we feel peaceful that, oh, now Allah has my back. I don't have to worry. Try this. Try this at home with your children. Because at least this will spark some thought process in them, and they'll become conscious that, oh, yeah, this is how the much tawakkul we have in our friends and family. If my father or mother, I have tawakkul, oh, they'll catch me when there's a problem. More than that, I should have tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whenever I do something. So what is the majority of fears that we have? What are those? What are the majority of fears that we have? What is the category? Are we really? Or let me say worries. Worries are also fears, but we have given them another name. I mean, what do we worry about all the time? Those are things that we fear, we are afraid of, right? That they will happen. So worries and fears is almost the same, interchangeable term. We are stressed about our worries most of the times.
Fear of health problems, when we see all around young people getting health problems. So we also start worrying about that.
Basically, that is all.
Fear of loneliness in future.
Okay. So in future, right? Something that hasn't happened.
Right.
Right? Fear of the unknown, fear of the unseen.
Fear of losing our loved ones.
Yes, but again, These are things that haven't happened yet. And you're afraid that they might happen. But how often are you afraid? Like, how much are they in your head? Are they paralyzing? Are they always there in your head?
No,
Or
not paralyzing.
yeah,
Not paralyzing.
like if you're functional, then it's fine. Being
Mhm.
functional with your fears, it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a thing in the head, in the brain, there is a fight and flight center. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given everybody that fight and flight center. We have our sixth sense. We have, like, we sense fear of some harm, and
Mm-hmm.
then we um, take action to be safe. So
Right.
it's a safety response of the body and the brain,
Mm.
that we sense fear, and we don't see it in ourselves as much as we see in animals. They sense fear and then they hide or they act differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a fear and we have a fight and flight response. So it is a natural tendency of humans to be afraid.
Okay.
And the tendency, the problem is that what I want to focus on is that most of our problems, most of our fears, most of our worries, they are unseen and unknown and unpredictable. You're afraid of things that may happen, but also may not happen,
Mm.
right? The chances of
Right.
their happening are as much as they're not happening, because they haven't happened yet,
Right.
right? So if you
Mm.
overthink about them, then it's in your hands to switch your brain to think, oh, but they might not happen as well.
Mm.
So why are you only thinking of their happening when the chances of their not happening are the same?
Right.
I mean, hasn't it happened? Like sometimes we worry, oh, my mother might may have
Mm.
a very long life. We fear that, oh, my mother might get into an accident or something, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid of I don't want to see her die. And then I've seen
Right.
so many children die in front of the parents.
Mm.
So the flip side is also as possible as your fear. Like people are afraid of let's talk about something more like less stressful. So being afraid of failing in a business, right? Business venture.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you start a business and you're afraid you'll fail,
Mm-hmm.
but the probability of your success is also same.
Mm.
You haven't started yet, so if you're afraid of failing, then the chances of your success are also there. So what if I fail? Flip it to what if I succeed? And what if you succeed is such a good thing, then why don't you try?
Mm.
Right? So it's
Right.
just a mind game. It's a very, very big mind game. And when we remove shaitan and vasvasa from the equation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then we are doing zulm on ourselves, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that Allah does not wrong anybody, humans wrong themselves. So
Exactly.
we wrong ourselves when we
Mm-hmm.
take the psychology only from West, because they have
Mm-hmm.
ruled out the concept of shaitan, akhira, infinity, or
Mm-hmm.
worldview. They
Right.
have taken it out completely. And then what's happening is, the problem is that people are just watching TikToks made by youngsters who don't even know the meaning, who may not even know the spelling of psychiatrist. You know, those people who are making TikToks about narcissism, they may not even know how to spell psychology. You know, so
Mm.
those people are giving wrong concepts, and our younger generation, they are taking blindly following the definitions of psychology given to them by people who are as illiterate as themselves, right? And they don't know the Islamic connection of any of these terms. I was so shocked. I had never refused anybody therapy, but I had to stop giving therapy to this one person, because she was constantly calling her mother things,
Mm.
constantly calling her a narcissist, although the problem was with the father. And she was
Mhm.
constantly, I kept telling her, please don't call your mother that. Please don't call your mother
Mhm.
that. And she got angry at me because I was siding with the mother.
Mhm.
And they had only taken, oh, I watched a few TikToks and I watched a few videos, and I know my mother is a narcissist. I don't say that.
Mhm.
I kept telling her, don't say that. And she just got angry with me because I took side of her mother. So I had to, I'm the kind of a person, I give people a lot of room and a lot of space, but I had to like tell her that please don't come back to me, because you're not going to learn. And so where do we have the example of peer pressure? Any place in the Quran that you can think of where Allah Ta'ala has guided us against peer pressure? Anything you can think of?
Allah said, "Fear only me. Don't fear people."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
What
है ना,
about
trans.
the they and them, the people? There is a
Yeah,
very,
don't fear.
very,
Yeah, yes, yeah. It's in the Quran. That ayat. Don't fear people. Those who invite others to Islam, they don't. Something like this. In Urdu, I remember in Urdu, मलामत करने वाले से नहीं डरते.
yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for reminding me of this ayah. So beautiful. But should I drop the bomb?
Yeah, yeah.
Should I drop the bomb?
Sure,
Surah
sure.
Nas.
Surah, yeah. Surah Nas, no?
Yeah?
Surah Nas.
Surah Nas.
Okay, yeah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ended the Quran with Surah Nas. Just like,
Mhm.
a judge does this 3 hammerings, after
Yeah,
a
right.
verdict. It's like the hammer. The hammer is, you know, thrown over there. This is Kulauzu bi Rabbin Nas. Like, we always seek Allah's protection
Mhm.
against. Now imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Kulauzu bi Rabbil Falak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not mention his own attributes,
Mhm.
right? In
Right.
Surah Falak, Kulauzu bi Rabbil Falak, min sharri ma khalaq. Khalaq is there,
Mhm.
yes. Because that includes everybody, that includes the jinn,
Yeah,
shayateen,
all
insects, everything.
creation.
But
Mhm.
the specific in Kulauzu bi Rabbin Nas, Allah subhanahu wa
Mhm.
ta'ala has mentioned 3 of his names, right? Rab,
Yes.
Malik,
Malik.
Ilah,
Ilah, right. Ilah.
right? So
Mhm.
this is because we are seeking Allah's protection. There are scholars who say there are scholars who say the shorter surahs, they have actually longer tafsir than the longest surahs. It's
Mhm.
so beautiful, so beautiful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has like bilkul summarized the juice of it,
Mhm.
arc. So
बिल्कुल.
Rab, Malik, Ilah. Rab is, now why is Rab and Ilah not, we see here the contrast. Rab and Ilah mentioned here separately. Although we say in Surah Fatiha, we say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. But we say La ilaha illallah. We don't say La Rabbi illallah. We say La ilaha illallah to become a Muslim. Shahada is with Ilah. But Allah's introduction is that He's the Rabb of Alameen. He's the maintainer, He's the sustainer, He's the nourisher, He's the nurturer, He's the provider, right? All those supporter, all those names, comforter, all those names are inclusive. Almost, I would probably like say that all the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards a human being, they are embedded in Rabb. And Ilah is the one that we worship, we devote ourselves to. But Rabb is the one who's taking care of everything in the universe. Like we are asleep and the sun comes up. We don't even know when the sun is, how the sun is coming up. We are asleep and the oxygen is being made. Our food is being made. Allah is doing it. Allah is taking care of all these things. How a mango grown in India or Pakistan is put on a truck and transported, in a ship or a aeroplane and ends up in Texas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking care of that. I don't even know which shelf, which Walmart, which city, which street it's coming to, and then coming to my house. That's Allah's planning. He's the Rabb, taking care of every movement, every atom. So that is Rabb. And he's the provider. So not the job, not my boss, not my property, not my land, not the person who's probably snatched my property by force or something, by zulm. It's totally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I rely on him, if I have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is the one sending oxygen to everyone. He's the one sending sunlight to everyone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing everything. So I have to be, when I seek protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have to be conscious that he's the Rabb, he's the king, and he's the one I worship. So I have to be afraid of nobody. When I lose that fear and then I recite Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, I see miracles happening that I didn't see when I used to recite and I was afraid of people at the same time. I've been like that. I used to recite surahs of protection and I used to shake and I used to be afraid. But when I stopped fearing people and I prayed the same du'as, the results were miraculous. The results were explosive. It was as if I would recite one time and it would be like a nuke, you know. But when I keep reciting and I'm afraid of people, the results are different. And that is where I understood why the Prophet ﷺ said that when you pray, pray with conviction. Don't do a half-hearted prayer. Maybe that's what it means, because when you pray for protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have the complete tawakkul of a baby who sleeps in your arms. The baby knows you're not going to throw that baby. The baby is so comfortable, comes to your arms and falls asleep. The baby knows that you're not going to do any harm to the baby. So we don't even have that much tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the problem is, why am I talking about babies and children, and why am I doing that? Because we are a child at heart. You would be very stressed at work, very stressed at home, but you walk into a shop and somebody smiles at you and you're smiling. जो कहते हैं ना बत्ती सी बाहर आ जाती है. Like you start smiling, full blossom. ऐसे रौनक आती है चेहरे पे. You see a baby smile, you see somebody crossing you and smiles. Contagious, foreign. उसी वक्त हम smile कर देते हैं. So we are children at heart. So we should rediscover the child that is within us. We should rediscover that child. We should nurture that child. We should clean up the vaswasa and the conditioning, the false conditioning of other people. And we should bring out the natural beauty that is within us, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent as a default that is within us. So I'm going to touch up a little bit on panic attacks, because this is also something that is very self-diagnosed problem these days. Everybody starts saying that I have a panic attack, I have a panic attack. I've heard this so many times.
अल्लाह ताला ने जो fear को है वो कैसे address किया है उसमें.
हाँ सूरह नास
एक
में
मुझे वो आयात सी आई थी इधर माइंड में. एक वो जब हजरत लूत अलैहिस्सलाम को कहा था वो लम्मा अंजात रुसलना लूतन सिया बिहिम व ताका बिहिम ज़रअन व क़ालू ला तख़फ व ला तहज़न इन्ना मुनज्जुका व अहलका इल्ला इम्रअतका कानत मिनल गाबिरीन. तो इसका किधर गई इसकी ट्रांसलेशन. एक ये था और एक वो जब हजरत मूसा को कहते हैं कि फेंको अपना.
हाँ नहीं, मूसा अलैहिस्सलाम का मैंने एंड पे यही जिक्र करना है ना. मैं अभी उस पे आती हूँ, फिर इंशाल्लाह बात करेंगे. तो ये वजलत कुलूबुहुम जो है ना, ये असल में अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला ने कुरान पाक में कहा है कि मोमिन तो वो हैं कि जिनको जब अल्लाह का जिक्र आता है तो उनकी कुलूब शेक करती हैं। तो हमने हमने कल्ब को शेक करने को पैनिक अटैक बना दिया है, राइट? असल प्रॉब्लम ये आ रहा है कि हमने देयर इज अ नॉर्मल शेकिंग ऑफ द कल्ब जो कि अल्लाह को पसंद है, एंड देयर इज अ नेगेटिव शेकिंग ऑफ द कल्ब जो कि पैनिक अटैक में हम डाल देते हैं, ठीक है ना? तो इसको स्टडी करना पड़ेगा। इसको हम बस ये है कि पैनिक अटैक्स को हम खुद से डायग्नोज नहीं कर सकते, बिकॉज फियर इज अ नेचुरल रिस्पॉन्स, राइट? एंड वी हैव अ
Yeah.
फाइट और फ्लाइट रिस्पॉन्स इन द ब्रेन। हमारे अंदर ब्रेन के अंदर एक बकायदा एक यानी अल्लाह ताला ने सेफ्टी मैकेनिज्म दिया हुआ है फाइट और फ्लाइट का, ठीक है? तो इसको हम फिर दोबारा इंशाल्लाह डिस्कस करेंगे। अब ये देखो कि मूसा अलैहि सलाम की मदर ने शी सेव्ड द लाइफ ऑफ हर सन थ्रू पैनिक, right? She panicked. Allah gave her a solution. She put the baby in the water. And यहाँ पे तवक्कुल आता है फिर से. Again, we deal with tawakkul here. That Allah gave her an idea. She had faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She put the baby in the water, right? So this is both how panic is positive. It saves your life. And how tawakkul is that when you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you. So it is very dangerous these days. It is very dangerous to label our own selves with any of the psychological diagnoses, because that's what people are doing. Unfortunately, I have panic attack. I have panic attack. I have panic attack. Anybody who has a trauma history, understood, वो समझ भी आती है. But somebody who doesn't have that history and they start seeking counsel, then that becomes very problematic. So one should be seeking honest counseling, and one should be seeking honest doctors. So how do we do that Islamically? Well, we should we should ask our loved ones, somebody we trust, but we should also do istikhara. And istikhara is also a lost sunnah kind of. So we should do istikhara. We should seek Allah's counsel. Allah will, istikhara will work in a way that you will come across, you will just, jump across somebody, or somebody will, some flyer, some name will fall into your lap or something, or you'd see an ad all of a sudden. Somebody with through some sign, you'll just come across a name, and all of a sudden, when you're seeking Allah's help, you'll just, it just won't happen that you won't get an answer. So if you don't get a dream, or you don't get any tangible thing, no problem. You'll just take a wrong turn and you'll end up in front of the doctor's clinic. Something like that would happen. As long as you're seeking Allah's help, it would happen in one way or the other. This is the ayah in Surah Talaq. This is one of the most quoted ayat in, it's a bit of ayah number 2, and the rest of ayah number 3. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has spoken about how we should have tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is how it goes. Whoever fears Allah, He will make for him a way out, and will provide for him from where he does not expect. And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. I would rather add He is more than sufficient for him, but He is sufficient for him. Like He becomes sufficient for all the needs, psychological, physical, emotional, all needs. Then when you rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He just becomes completely, sufficient for you. And how He does that? Well, Allah is capable. We should just have more and more faith. So the relationship between fear is inversely proportional to tawakkul. If you have the little tawakkul you have, the more fear you'd have. And now we are going to talk a little bit about so what should we do? Don't worry about things you cannot control. Don't worry about things that you cannot control. Can you control your past?
No.
No, you cannot control your past. Things happened, yes, but can you control them now?
No.
Any of it? No. Then wise thing to do would be just stop yourself from going back there again and again. It's just like, may Allah forbid, somebody died and the other person is refusing to bury them. There are times when it happens. Somebody dies and the relatives get so aggressive and they start beating the doctor and they are like, no, we are not going to bury them. He's not dead. He's alive. He's alive. He's alive. So holding on to the past is like there's somebody who died and you're not letting others bury them. Islamically, we're just allowed to have 3 days of mourning. So bury the dead. The time that's gone by, that's the dead time. Bury the dead, weep over it for 2-3 days, move on. Right? Now, what is the other thing that you cannot control?
What, the future?
Yes. You cannot control the future. You can plan it, but will it always go as planned? Say you do everything perfectly. Everything you do perfectly. Right? Reach the top of the mountain and there's a landslide. There's a natural disaster. You build a house, you build a building. You always wanted to build a house. You get the money, you work hard, you did everything perfectly. All things were favorable. You built a house, you built a mansion exactly the way you wanted it, on this exact spot where you wanted it, exact city or country where you wanted it, and there's an earthquake. So is the fear of the future also going to be helping you in any way? The
No,
past is
only
not
to
in
the
your hand.
extent that it could make you, plan a little and in
The
a better
only
way.
thing, if you have a bad past, the only thing that you can do is be so afraid of turning your future into the past that you become 100% functional in the present. If you have a past that you haven't been able to get over, then every moment that you're idle and you're not doing anything about in the present moment, you're copy pasting the past into the future. Right? I think you should note this down. Be so afraid of turning your future into the past that you're so afraid of or terrified of, that if you're not doing something positive, or using your complete potential in the present, then you're just copy pasting the past into your future. So while worrying over things that we cannot control, we lose the present and the chance of improvement in the moment. And I just put down this Ferrari example because my kids understand the car language. So if you didn't get a Ferrari in the past, and you're so worried that you may not get a Ferrari in the future, you're sad that you didn't get it in the past, you're worried that you wouldn't get it in the future, and the sadness and the worry are so like keeping you preoccupied in this that you're ignoring the offer of a free Ferrari in the present,
Which is?
like the present moment is offering you a key. Right? The present moment is like a key. Past, present, future, All three are time, right? Time dimensions.
Mm.
So that's why all three I've mentioned are Ferraris. They're like past time, present time, future time. If you're either you're worried about or sad about the Ferrari you missed, or you're thinking about the Ferrari that you will miss, you're completely ignoring the Ferrari that's in your garage, right? Or the one that is being offered to you for free. So उस पे मिट्टी पड़ रही है while you're worried कि पहले नहीं मिली और बाद में नहीं मिलेगी, you know? So it's like that. So it like it's a picturesque version of the stupidity that we are putting ourselves into, like living in the past or living in the future. We're not living in the moment.
So the moment is whatever it is a Ferrari. I mean, of that you're
Yeah.
sure.
Yes, because it's in your hands. It's all you've got. It's the bird in hand or the Ferrari in hand. So it's the thing that you're afraid of. That's also nothing. And the thing that might never happen, you're afraid of that. But the thing that you actually have is far superior than a Ferrari, basically. But that's what I just thought of to give a picture, you know, to picture something that it is just like that. So time is precious. And when we are copy pasting the past into the future, we are actually choking the present. You know, गले से पकड़ के हम गला दबा रहे हैं अपने present का. वो एक, I think my kids love that saying that present is a gift. That's why it's called present. So time is very, very precious. And your mind is neither a trash can nor an escape room. Right? So stop living in the escape room. Start living in the real world. And your mind is not a trash can to keep dumping and hoarding and, you know, reliving the past. So here we have let's reflect on the life of Noah alayhi salam. Here, I want to remind you and me that either we are Noah alayhi salam or we are the Qawm, may Allah forbid, of Noah alayhi salam, that he preached for 950 years and they didn't change. And I think I should have this slide in all of my talks, because I don't know if the one I'm addressing is like the Qawm of Nuh, or they are actually going to take action and they're actually going to change. Because if some God's authorized Nabi, like a prophet, he must have been something. And he had so much grit and persistence. He preached for 950 years, and he says, day and night, he preached. So much he did. And even then, and imagine Allah's mercy, Allah made him build the ark over decades. So that people were looking at him building it. People were looking at him building it. That was also a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe they will see that he's building an ark and they will repent. They will say sorry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They'll change their ways. That was Allah's mercy that he built it over time, gradually. But even then, people didn't repent. They started making more fun of him. So look at how many chances Allah gives and look at how people react. So this is a reminder for both me and you that may Allah never make us of those people who are not receptive, who don't change when there's good advice and good warning given. May we become people who act and change. So once again, we start with dua. We start with asking Allah's help. We cannot do anything without Allah's help. And we should start with all the masnoon duas, and we should do the prophets, all the prophets that have prayed, and some of their best prayers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has recorded in the Quran. we should recite those. I love that Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin fakir. I love that. I love the dua made by the Ashab Kahf. That's ayah number 10 in Surah Kahf, I think. And these duas, especially when I'm lost, I love doing these duas. So we should start with dua. We should start with, and the power of dua is so great that we know that even when Imam Bukhari, he lost his eyesight and his mother prayed. So we should pray. We should pray for ourselves when we go blind, the way his mother prayed for him, right? वो तो उन्होंने तो अपने बेटे के लिए मांगी थी ना. हम कितनी दफा ब्लाइंड हो जाते हैं लाइफ में. We should pray for ourselves like that, like crazy, like a beggar. And actually, this term is very misleading, praying like crazy. I mean, if we look at how the Prophet ﷺ prayed, his feet became swollen. So if we pray for something like that, like our feet became swollen or something, I think all our problems will be sorted out, inshallah. So I don't remember praying for anything in that manner. Even at this point of life, I cannot claim that I have actually prayed for something like that my feet became swollen.
I don't think.
है ना? And then we start thinking यार दुआ नहीं कबूल हुई तो हमने कौन सा दुआ का हक अदा कर दिया.
There was Zainab who used to even, she tied a rope so she could hold on to it because she would pray so much. Yeah, there are many people who pray a lot. We should improve our salah and voluntary, the nafal prayer. We should increase Qiyamul Layl. We should make ihtamam, like ihtamam hotan, the way we do for our other people or guests. We should do ihtamam for night prayer. It's very, very helpful. And imagine the little we do and Allah pays back. Subhanallah. What a kind and loving God. So this is also one, like if you repeat this is one of the treasures of Jannah. Repeating this, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This, I think it helps if you know it with the meaning and consciously you repeat this, then slowly, slowly it takes away your fear of dunya and what people would say and all that. So, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This is very, very important. It's like many people suggest that this is very good for removing fear from the hearts. Somebody also suggested Surah Yasin. I think that's also for fear and worries. Ayatul Kursi, Surah Yasin.
Ayatul Kursi also. And peer pressure especially, we have to really, really immerse ourselves in the meaning of Surah Nas. Because over there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has really narrowed it down for us that, don't worry about people. Don't worry about kings. Don't worry where your risk will come from. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas. So Allah has reminded us of all those three names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the provider. He will provide. He is the king. He is the, he's not a human president. He can't do anything to you. I'm the king. I'm the owner of the lands. I'm the owner of everything. Don't worry about your boss. Don't worry about your, when it comes to doing the right thing, don't worry about anybody else. And this ayah, Allah bi zikrillahi tatmainnul qulub, it means there's a small grammatical twist here, which other people cannot see and which is not often translated. This means that इसको उर्दू में ऐसे कहेंगे कि अल्लाह के जिक्र में ही है इत्मीनान, कल्ब का इत्मीनान है ही अल्लाह के जिक्र में और किसी चीज में है ही नहीं. There is a grammatical placing of words here. जिसकी वजह से there is this thing called इख्तिसास, that उसमें आपको ऐड करना पड़ जाता है कि only, exclusively in the zikr of Allah do the hearts find peace. So you won't find it in anything else. And So this is very, very important to remember. Ala bi zikrillahi tatmainnul qulub. This is one of those ayahs I used to tell myself along with the day or a part of it. It's one of those. I used to remember this a lot. Alhamdulillah. So this is just a little bit to change the mood. If you ask someone who's falling in love or has fallen in love, they have the same symptoms as panic attack. When they approach the person they're in love with or having a crush on, you ask them, they have those cold sweats and palpitations and everything. So that is the same, you know. तो उस वक्त तो कोई जान नहीं निकल रही होती है, वो पैनिक अटैक ही होता है, बट उसको लव का नाम दे देते हैं. Butterflies in the stomach and cold sweats and हाय दिल गले में आ गया, you know. So panic attack is not such a thing to be loosely so easily spoken of, just like जैसे TikToks वगैरह में होते हैं. तो one should not diagnose, self diagnose जो करते हैं ना लोग. It's very, very bad, very dangerous. And I don't want to go into the details. There's so much drug abuse going on, even in the medical field. People are having themselves declared deliberately that we have this and we have that, and they go to the doctor and they get themselves declared as that maybe they act or they fake it, and then they get the medication because they want some benefits from the government. So this stupidity is a very long discussion. It would start. I don't want to go in there right now, but we'll talk about it inshallah later. So seek alternate medicine, change your diet, go for a walk. I was just going through, even for panic attacks, it was the same. Change your diet, go for a walk, go to nature, you know, same things. So we don't have to jump in the first go. We don't have to jump for medicines. We don't even know what medicines are made of. There's so many theories out there. So many people are like raising awareness that they put this thing, that thing. There's no regulation authority पे इतना burden है. They're just approving so many things unnecessarily without anybody ever able to get through the layers and layers and layers of deception and misinformation. So what do we have from Sunnah when an angry person feels that he's like losing temper, or a person
So
calm
that
person
you
getting angry?
stand up, you sit down. If you're sitting, you lie down. You take some water.
Take a sip of water, go for a
Yeah.
walk.
You
Yeah.
say, "Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim."
Change your position. Yeah. Change the room. So why don't we see that the Prophet ﷺ advised them to take medicine? Right? The first step was not medicine. The first step was self-control, self-therapy, action. Right? The first steps, many steps. These are many steps. Like try this, try this, try this. Right? So all these steps, none of them have medicine. He didn't say go take hijama. Right? It existed at that time. Prophet ﷺ didn't say go take hijama, go take some medicine. Water. Change your position. Right? So the focus is on self-control. And maybe one of the best medicines in Islam is fasting for self-control.
Yes.
So we should seek sunnah methods. We should not jump to be, relying on medicines, and because we don't see any incident where the Sahaba got panic attacks or PTSDs or depression. Although they didn't even have as many things as we. They didn't even have a fan. They didn't even have a ceiling fan. They didn't even have ice cold water. They didn't even have water here. We have so many types of drinks these days. We are living in nothing less than a paradise. You talk about tea, there are hundreds of types of teas. Talk about coffee, there are hundreds of thousands of, I'm sure, thousands of flavors of coffee, Like imagine we were discussing boba tea that time, and so there are teas with Coca-Cola in it, and there are teas with kulfa and barfi, and I mean there's so much availability of stuff, so many things we can do, so many channels, and so much Quran recitation available. I mean, imagine Sahaba Ikram didn't have as a switch on kiya or Surah Bakra laga li, right? Or imagine auto pe laga li, repeat pe. When they wanted to do it, they would just have to read it. No other way. And we can't even put it on and keep it on repeat and keep it on. You know? So we are unable to change our lives even by moving of fingers. How weak we have become. What is the level of Iman? How weak we have become. The Sahaba didn't have this facility of turning on, turning off with a click. Yeah, I feel shame on me, you know. Even I get lazy just in listening. So why didn't Sahaba get depressed? They just worried about Akhirah. There are incidents when they kept crying and got worried. They were just worried about Akhirah. So little bit about self-sabotage. Whatever we have discussed so far, summing it up, all these things that we do to ourselves, especially the peer pressure, it's like the fear of the unknown, the unseen, the untangible. Like we cannot, nothing is real. No fears, no outcomes are real. We are just there in the head. So we have to shift our focus. We have to filter. This is waswasa. This is real. This is fine. This is positive. This is productive. This is destructive. This is negative. All destructive, negative, just throw it out by choice. The traffic in your brain traffic, your thought traffic, it's in your control. And in Pakistan, I remember what happens when there's a roundabout and there is no traffic controller over there. It's a hell of a mess, right? Everybody's coming, nobody's stopping, nobody's giving the other person way. Everybody wants to go first. So, but you place one inspector or whatever, there's a traffic controller over there, and then everything runs smoothly. So the taqwa is that one traffic police guy that is managing or maintaining. Okay, you go first, now you stop, you go first, now you stop. So taqwa is that police guy that is standing there and managing the traffic. You have to be that conscious that you control the traffic of your thoughts. Okay. Now there is no shortcut. Now people might try to tell you that there is a shortcut, there is a shortcut, there is no shortcut. There was no shortcut in raising a baby. There was no shortcut in raising the second baby. There was no shortcut in raising a third baby. There was no shortcut. It's just, I think if somebody tries to sell it, it's just a lie. It's a big lie. You have to go, take all the steps. Yeah, barakah comes when you do good dealings with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that is in Allah's hand. Somebody gets it easy. They get more barakah in the same thing than the other. That is your dealings with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have nothing to do with that. But to think that it will be, I will say something, you will switch off the iPad or your phone, and you will be motivated enough to transform into Superman. That's not going to happen, because just like by watching a cake video, the cake is not ready in your kitchen. So similarly, by watching a motivational video, you're not going to get automatically motivated. You have to take the steps required. And those steps required are your responsibility, not mine. Right? To remember the points, to go over them again and again, to make an effort to do the dua, to make your, sujood, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, get a deep connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is all your effort. So again, self-sabotage is also when we let everything overwhelm us. We just keep running all the past reels in our head. We keep reliving the past, which we cannot control, and we keep losing the present, and we keep messing up the future. It's all in our hands. It's a choice. And the fears We don't start the peer pressure. What will others think? For this, now what is the solution for self-sabotage? You have to, first of all, chop off the head of the victim mentality. You have to behead the victim mentality. You have to become a victor, not a victim. You're not a victim, you're a victor. This is your new identity. You're not a victim, nothing happened to you, perfectly fine, alhamdulillah. You're alive, breathing, alhamdulillah. You're not a victim, you're a victor. Self-doubt is something even Musa alayhi salam had, although Allah spoke to him. Right? This is what I was talking about, Zara, that we'll come back to it. That imagine Allah Ta'ala is talking to Musa alayhi salam. Now let's rewind a little bit. He is raised as a prince in the king's palace. Imagine he's already raised like a prince, full of confidence, right? Pharaoh's son. Yeah? Slight affiliation with the Pharaoh, king, makes people proud and fearless. He is raised as the Pharaoh's son in the palace. He must have had, जिसे कहते हैं ना उर्दू में बला का confidence, right? But he has self-doubt when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him that go speak with Pharaoh. So having self-doubt is fine. Even the prophets have it. But never let that self-doubt paralyze you. Okay? That is where you have to keep relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, keep praying, stay connected with Allah ta'ala, and then that self-doubt, let it be. It will come every step. It might come at every step. Imagine his self-doubt that he's going back and he's asking Allah ta'ala, no, send Harun with me. So it's fine. Allah ta'ala did not scold him. How dare you? I am with you. Go. Allah did not say. Right? So it's okay. Have self-doubt. But keep acting as well. Keep taking the steps. Keep having self-doubt. Keep taking the steps. Get used to it. Don't sit idle. Don't let the fear paralyze you. Stay with the doubt. Let the doubt stay and keep functioning. Keep improving. Keep going on. And lastly, for the peer pressure, you have to do one exercise. You have to think the thoughts that you have. Log kya kahenge? What will people say? What will people think? You have to think when, may Allah forbid, if you're like a very poor person, like a person who has a रेडी वाले जो होते हैं, like they're always सुबह से शाम तक रेडी लगाते हैं and then घर जाते हैं, बिल्कुल very 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 poor, may Allah forbid. If you're that poor, or may Allah forbid, when you're on your deathbed, or may Allah forbid, when you're in the grave. Can you repeat the three scenarios? When, may Allah forbid, when either you're very very poor, or when you're on your deathbed, or when you're in the grave. On these three occasions, will this matter? Same people that you worry about now, are these people going to matter?
No.
No. Then should they matter now?
No.
No. Then this is the reality. And you also believe in it. This is the reality. Just like I was saying that I believe that I'm a shy person, but that was a fake belief. Right? Because I go and I shop and I talk to the customers and customer service and I talk to the sales assistant and everything. I'm fine over there. It was a fake made up belief. I'm not really that shy. I can do things that I want to do. So similarly, you're not afraid of people as much as you think you are. So you have to filter within yourself. You have to work on yourself and you have to filter all these. And inshallah, reach a conclusion, reach a decision, and start taking steps and stop fearing. Start living. Inshallah.